Do you want to learn how to use the tarot cards? I asked my intuitive friend Seph, who learned tarot with the angels, to teach us. Seph will show us how to start with tarot, how to do a tarot reading for ourselves, and he will also do a tarot reading for us. We will talk about awareness, the power of consciousness, and as a bonus track, we pulled a tarot card to understand what was the role of COVID in our lives. Seph, thank you so much for being here. So I would like to know, how do we start playing with the tarot cards?
One of the things I want to say, tarot speaks the language of the universe. Tarot speaks the language of the soul. And so there's a lot of very interesting, mystifying stories around tarot, its origins, its history, and things like that. But what tarot basically does is operate on the laws of synchronicity. Each of the 78 cards in the tarot tell like a little story. They have a little bit of a story that's connected to them. And so it's a very complex language which brings into synchronicity, or brings synchronicity into the equation. And when that happens, then it gives us an idea or a message that we need to know. So a lot of times when people learn or attempt to learn the tarot, is they begin to memorize the meanings of each of the cards. Each of them have a beautiful story, right? Mm-hmm. And so they begin to learn that. But then what happens is then we're in our head. And there's a lot of different things that people say about the cards, but the power isn't in the cards. The power is in our intention. The power is in our inner knowing. So what's interesting is that it only unlocks our inner knowing. And we have a way that it's pinged inside of us. And we call that resonating. I resonate with that.
Right.
And there's a way that our inner awareness makes us aware that whatever information we're receiving from the outside world is relevant to what we know already on the inside. When we do a reading for ourselves, one of the most common pitfalls is that we're with our own fear. So we're usually going to interpret one of the meanings in the card like something bad is about to happen. Mm-hmm. And that, quite frankly, is the reason why some people are afraid of the tarot, is because they think that it's a fortune-telling device, and they think that it's going to tell us that something bad is happening. And that's because it's been misused in the past by people who wanted to take advantage of other people. And the great thing about having someone else do a reading for you is because they're not in your situation and they don't have the fear that you have, right? So they can see it with a little bit more clarity. So when we do go to read for ourselves, one of the most important things we want to do is we want to clear the fear. So yes, a meditation helps. I encourage some of my students to burn a candle. But when we burn a candle, or we have anything like moving water around us, it automatically puts us into a lower brainwave state. Like it starts to put us into the alpha and or theta brainwave states. And that's where we shut off the lower mind and we turn on the higher mind, and we're only in tune with that. So whether you sort them or not, use upside down meanings or not, it's all up to you. I like to hold a belief that the card is blank until I turn it over, right? Because then sometimes life just kind of surprises you once in a while. You know, we have a lot of events happening in our world today that are creating a lot of fear spikes for a lot of people. And yet, why is this happening? This is happening because humanity is moving up an octave in vibration. And so as a result of that, it's time for us to purge things that no longer serve that higher octave, right? So there's two ways of looking at that. Well, we can pull a tarot card about the situation. Say, for example, we've had a breakup with someone, and we learn through the breakup that, for example, the tarot card may be telling us that this is what that person came in to teach us. And suddenly we see the value in what existed instead of the waste in what's left us. So I'm just going to have you pull 3 cards from the deck, and I'm just going to explain what they mean, and then I'm going to let the universe create the synchronicity, because The one thing is, when we do go into that higher mind, we're also going to stream what's also attached to it in addition to what the card might be saying. And I'm going to demonstrate that right now, okay? Well, this is cool. So the first card that we have is the Four of Wands. Oh, a lot of wands. A lot of wands. Okay, cool. So this is interesting. There's a couple of things that I'm going to explain here, and then I'm going to the meeting, and then I'm going to show you why this would be relevant here. So first of all, when I see this, I tap into right away, which has nothing to do with knowing the specific meanings of the cards. Wands deals with action. And the Wheel of Fortune card upside down implies that it's like a clock. When the minute hand strikes the 12, simultaneously the old hour leaves and the new hour begins. So this signifies a change in cycle. So if the card's upside down, it lets us know that something is not changing or something has not given us the new cycle yet. This is a lot of action for something that hasn't changed yet. And I know that a lot of people right now are working very hard and not seeing results. So this speaks to people working very hard and not seeing results. So that could be trying to keep their financial position or their businesses together right now. This can actually deal with people trying to make relationships work or whatever, where the positive change that they're working toward or the accomplishment that they're working toward is still eluding them. And more than likely, they're probably physically exhausted. And not that I can see this from the cards, but the first thing that I realize through my awareness, through my intuitive awareness, is that it's so important when we get to times like this that we go and restock the well of creativity inside of us. And the creativity isn't just when we're a painter or an artist or a chef or whatever. That can be creating, harmony in our household with 4 kids. That can be, creating, getting the new job that we want to get or whatever it is, or just sort of making the bills meet. That's a sort of creating the reality that we want to live too, is ease in our finances. And also feeling that we relate to the world around us. So in order for us to draw from that well, we have to actually stock that well. And the energy that's in that well is life force or the energy of the creator. So it comes from right here in the heart. That's where self-love comes in. That's where play comes in, because it fills this area up. This speaks right here of a lot of actual working, but feeling depleted in the energy or creativity department. Now it's interesting because the King of Wands is about the ultimate expression of action, which is synchronicity, being in the right place at the right time. So even though the clock has not struck 12 yet, we're still exactly where we're supposed to be. And have you ever noticed that when someone is working really hard to accomplish something and the accomplishment has not taken place yet, then our monkey mind automatically comes in and makes us believe that we're defeated, or that we're not in the right place at the right time, or that we did
the right people, or
that we did something wrong. So even though this is saying, look at all this action and the thing that we're working toward hasn't happened yet, but it's also letting us know with this one sort of like sparkling, it's saying, but don't worry, you're in the right place at the right time. And for a lot of people who could relate to this, first of all, realizing that the world of energy is speaking by letting them know, by saying, yeah, you know what? I know that this is the way it is, but it's exactly the way it's supposed to. And then we realize, well, if you know this, then you obviously have a plan, or you've got my back. The second is that when this one card sparkles in here, and we go, and you know what? Even though you're still working towards your accomplishment or your achievement, or resolving your issue that you're attempting to resolve, that this doesn't imply that the situation won't change cycles. It just implies that it hasn't yet. But this card also tells a story that reminds us that the change of cycle is inevitable. So there's no such thing as a blocked change of cycle. And then we had an opportunity just with these 3 cards to have a conversation about how important it is to make sure that our heart is well stocked with creative life force energy that comes from the Creator. And that when we do all of this work to get nowhere, sometimes we have to take a break, get a massage, go to the beach, or do something like that. So that's how the cards can play out in a reading, because they have a message. And look, this is also completion as well, which is the message on this particular card, which is also about completing something and this is action. So working to complete something that is still yet to be completed. When we become intuitive, or we decide to take the journey to become more intuitive, there's a sort of a domino effect, a chain reaction, because what happens is that we become more intuitive, which then means that we are living from our awareness instead of our mind. As pretty soon we don't even need the cards anymore. Everything is a tarot card. On my way over here, one of the things I'm considering is a move to Arizona. And I can't tell you how many Arizona license plates I saw, right? So everything is a tarot card. These cards aren't separate from reality, and reality isn't separate from the cards. There's a saying that says that whatever you call that force, God or the Holy Spirit or the universe, if you take one tiny step to it, it will take a quantum leap to you. And the reason for that is because there is no separateness from us to it. In fact, we are an expression of it. We are a piece of it. The first thing that I would say is, even though we use the cards, it's not about the cards. It's about your own connectivity to your inner awareness. And this should actually link you to it, where the information will exist. So we transfer it from the cards to our higher awareness. So even though we work with memorizing the meanings, the first tip I would give is that don't make this about what the card is saying or not saying, but make it about what you're realizing when you see the card and the information that's streaming through stream of consciousness. That's what makes it very powerful. And a lot of times you'll see things that the card makes you realize, but it isn't necessarily in the card, that wouldn't be there or available to you. The second thing would be, and this is an interesting one, when you offer to do readings or like things for other people, you'll very often get your own questions answered to questions that you don't seem to be able to find the answer for. 3 is incorporate some other things. So incorporate things like, like maybe some peaceful music. So we want to be in a very peaceful state when we do that. So always, whether we're doing this for ourselves or in others, get into that peaceful state. And if we have different challenges with getting into a peaceful state, then there's an opportunity there to learn mindfulness. So we do a mindfulness activity to get into a peaceful state before we actually start doing them. And another one is to realize that life is conspiring in your favor. So there is nothing in the fortune or the future outcomes of these cards that's letting you know that your life, that all that you came here to experience is canceled for you just because your lower mind constantly 24/7 tells you that it's not going to be represented here. So we give the opportunity to do that. And if I were to think of one more tip, just because it's probably going to be the really good one, the only thing that we are here to do is to seek. We get here, we go to work maybe, we fulfill some probably, which will seem to some these days like a perfunctory function, like that's almost meaningless. And we do these things where we're in motion in the 3D world to satisfy requirements of the 3D world. But we forget that we're actually a soul forever. Forever before we came here and forever after we come here. And in that respect, we're here for the consciousness journey. We're here to take a journey in the body. And so this is meant to give us that back so that we perceive our life, instead of being a body with a soul, that we're a soul with a body.
A lot of wands.
You know, well, this is the Three of Wands. And the Three of Wands, any of the three cards are about unity. So the message here is literally about unity. It doesn't matter who thinks the masks are good and who thinks the masks are bad and all the other things that are connected to this. The thing that we need to focus right now on is unity. So before this situation came in, we live in a left brain world where we feel that we're separate. So it's okay for us to amass as much wealth as we can, and don't matter how it affects other people as long as I'm okay. And that's the prevailing mentality of all of the constructs in our reality. But this is meant to unify us as a force of oneness, a tribe here. And so this wants to talk about the aspect that we're meant to learn, which we're meant to step into unity. What I've been doing lately is when people bring up the lower vibrating conversation aspect of the other things, I say, I'm a healer and I'm holding an energetic space where we're already beyond this and we've got the gift of what we're meant to receive from this. It literally is about unity. And the weird thing, Cris, even though it looks like there's absolutely no unity, this will create unity. It'll take a while. But this is about unity. But for those of us who came from other dimensions to help Earth during this time of transformation, we already know that we have a certain way to unify through compassion with all without having to take a side or be part of the polarity. So for those of us who are already aware, we can create that unity from that perspective. That's what I get.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
And thank
angel.
yes. And thank you to the audience for participating.